Barbie and the Three Musketeers, which is like a 2D action platformer featuring Barbie, as you might be able to guess by the name. But it was developed by WayForward and put out for DS, PC, and Wii. And I've largely seen this game called like a Barbie, like Metroidvania. I'm a little iffy on that definition. It does have some backtracking, but I think it's much simpler than that. So I think the expectations of calling it something like that is maybe a little misleading. But anyways, this is a game based off the Barbie and the Three Musketeer movie. I assume. I have not watched that movie. But it features like CG cutscenes from what looks like a Barbie movie. And actually, if you look at the back of the box, they literally show no gameplay on the Wii version. It is literally just Barbie movie screenshots there. So they're like, please don't look at this video game and realize it's a 2D platformer. Just buy the Barbie game, please. But anyways, you know, I will say with this game itself, though, at least my personal feeling as somebody who has not played a Barbie game before, I don't really feel like Barbie elements are super prevalent here. So when I think like what I would be thinking about with Barbie elements is stuff like, you know, with clothing and things like that, maybe clothing playing a role into the gameplay. This is more or less just an action game. And I will say there's not a lot going on here when it comes to being an action game. It is very basic platforming. Combat is mostly just kind of there to be there. It does not particularly feel good from that perspective. So what this game's strength is mostly is, in terms of gameplay at the very least, is character abilities, because you have a lot of character swapping that happens in this game. There's 5 different characters. There's the character that I guess Barbie plays called Corinne, and she has 2 swords equipped, and she can also like grip onto ceilings, so she can kind of like, if she can reach a ceiling, she can grab on and carry herself over to places. You have Miette, which is a cat that can fit into small spaces, and usually there's like a little switch at the end of there to open doors and things like that. There's Vivica, who has like a whip, or like a ribbon whip, I guess you could call it, and she can swing from hooks to kind of like get up on higher places. Renee has like a violin that shoots projectiles, which largely is used for hitting switches that are just kind of floating in the sky and things like that. And then finally you have Armina. She's like a dancer with fans, and when she dances, it increases her movement speed and jump capabilities. But she's a late game character, so you don't generally use her that much for just movement throughout the game kind of thing. So, you know, these characters kind of all unlock as you go through the story, but, you know, as you expand your roster, more and more of their, like, elements are introduced to stages. So, you know, platforming through levels doesn't really have much challenge here. But you will always need to kind of like puzzle your way out of a room. So while there's like little depth from movement perspective, every room is about figuring out how to use each character's abilities to kind of move on to the next part of that room kind of thing. Which is actually kind of interesting because things like Barbie gripping the ceiling and things like that isn't always as clear, like where those kind of places you can use that ability and things like that. So I will say you do have to like sit down and think a little bit, but it's very like not a ton of depth here. You know, you'll be able to get through it as an adult, right? Be able to get through it without too much struggle, really. There's also some boss fights here as well, but again, the boss fights are mostly puzzles that are mostly about using the character abilities to dodge a boss or like knock down certain elements to like, you know, basically stun a boss and do damage to them. And a lot of the bosses you can just mash your way through as well. So, but they feel more like puzzles than boss fights. But kind of a key part of this game as well is that there's like collectible money, so that you can go and find all these little coins around the level. And while there's no real like functional reward you get for collecting these coins, they do 2 things where you can buy outfits, which basically just changes the sprite for Barbie to different colors. I kind of wish there was more dresses and things like that you could equip. There's actually another sprite with Barbie in a dress as well that I kind of wish was like a character outfit too, but you know, this game's pretty slim overall in terms of content. And then the other things you buy from the store are screenshots from the cutscenes that you can view in like a gallery or something like that. So those parts I think are kind of not that interesting, especially since the like outfits are just reskinned colors basically of Barbie's standard outfit. However, one thing that is like helpful from the money part is that it gives you a reason to go back. So when you go to these levels, or when you finish the level, there's going to be money you just straight up cannot access your first time through it. So as you go and unlock characters, that gives you more abilities to go back and you know, collect that money essentially. And really, you probably shouldn't do this in like a standard playthrough. You probably should just go through the story all at once first. But once you have all the characters in your party, then that's like a good time to go back. So when you're playing the main story, there's probably only like 3 stages where you really are utilizing every single character and their abilities, because you get, the last character fairly late in the game. But what the money lets you do in terms of going back and collecting it is basically allows you to go explore parts of the level that previously were locked away and utilize those character abilities in some more diverse environments from just the final level of the game as well, or final environment of the game as well. So it really gives you an excuse to go back and go collect that additional money, because the money is not something that like respawns or anything like that. You have to collect the money that's remaining in the world itself if you want to buy everything in the shop. But it's more of an excuse to go back, and the game is only about like an hour or 2 long, probably closer to 2 hours long, if you just do like a straight story playthrough. But I think if you really want to see the game, at its best, going through all the levels again and recollecting the last bits of money with the different characters is a part of the game I would recommend, even if it only adds on maybe like another hour or 2 of playtime kind of thing. So, but it's short. I don't think the game overstays its welcome. I think given the mechanics of this game, it generally is good that it's a short game overall. It is a very nice looking game, I will say, visually. I was playing the Wii version of this, and while it's not like HD or something like that, the PC version, I wonder if it's like a higher resolution if you'll play it there. But it is a very detailed game. The animations of the game look great as well for all the characters and things like that. So again, though, I would have really liked some dress variety and things like that. I think that would have added to the presentation. And the music's actually fairly relaxing as well. I definitely went and downloaded the soundtrack to this and threw it in my playlist after I was done. But, like I said at the start, I haven't played many other Barbie games and things like that. And I think it's hard to say if this is a good Barbie game. I just don't know, like, what makes a good Barbie game generally. But I don't think this really represents a traditional Barbie game that you would see, like, a Barbie horse adventure or something like that, right? So I think really what you're getting here is just a good kid-friendly platformer. There's a few maybe pain points where there's like some weird buggy collision that might confuse a kid and things like that. Even I was just like, I don't know what's happening at this part, because for some reason I can't hit the switch, only to find out like there's this weird invisible block like sitting in front of it, so I have to hit it from like a different angle. But generally I think the game is very accessible, and I think anybody could probably get through it without too much trouble. And so I think it's like a good kind of first kind of action platformer if you want to give something to someone who wants to have that more like casual experience. Does that replace like a Kirby in terms of like what is more casual? Probably not. Kirby is probably the better experience for something like that. But here's another option, especially if the kid really is into Barbie or something like that. But really overall, just like a very like solid and cute game.